Welcome back to the Authentic Human Podcast. If you tuned in last week, you are going to love this week. And if you didn't, you're going to love it anyways. But you may want to go back and listen to last week because we have Kyle Meintjes back again. Thank you, Kyle. Welcome.
Amazing. Stoked for part two.
And we're going right into part two. So, you were sharing with us your journey and your um, the part of your awakening where you were beginning to ask bigger questions and you were
Mm,
getting bigger answers, right? So,
mm,
you know,
yeah.
you went from a place of, I don't know what the heck's going on to
Mm,
now I got bigger questions. And it's really cool
mm,
because the bigger questions you have, the universe goes, oh, here, this person can help. And then you can work with this person. And, when you were
right.
talking about the different people you started working with, right? And
Yeah.
it's how the universe works, right? Whatever we're putting
Yeah.
out, it's like, here, this is what you need, right? And it's a trust.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's super cool. So tell me where we're at in your journey now.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible. It's like it didn't, yeah, it's so true. Like it's so clear from the perspective now that that's exactly what was happening. Is it was like, yeah, the questions just got bigger and bigger. And then, like you said, the universe responds accordingly. Um, so yeah, I was, yeah, the questions, this was interesting. The questions were getting like really big, and but I was loving it, right? It was there was this like something was waking up inside of me that was like finally being honored, basically. And it was the quest for truth, and it was starting from such an intellectual place, which was, again, where I was at the time. So I wanted to read every single book that there was about physics. I wanted to read every single
Yeah.
book that there was about philosophy because I was like, I need to, like, something was just finally getting sparked, and I was like, I need to know.
Yes.
And yeah, I really resonated with Sam Harris because he is such an intellectual, but he had this kind of spiritual perspective as well, and a lot of spiritual insight. And
I
what
love that.
yeah, it was incredible. But here's the funny thing, right? Is my body and my health was kind of not letting me veer from the path that I was supposed to go on, right?
Yeah.
So I couldn't read the dry philosophical books. I was trying desperately. I was like, I want to read this
Uh-huh.
massive 1,000-page book on philosophy to totally understand it and get to the bottom of it. And then my body, like the brain fog and the symptoms that I would get, was just like, you can't do this. Like, this is not. And looking back, it was like, yeah, that's like, you have to go here. You can't go there. You can't go there. You
Oh
can't go
yeah.
there.
It's
Yeah.
I had such a similar experience in the sense that, my mother had passed away and I had this entire library of spiritual books in my house now. And
Yeah.
like every book from all of them, everyone. She was like a junkie with spirituality and books. And every time I would pick one up to read it, the doorbell would go, the phone would ring. And this is back before internet was really big. It was just
Yeah.
starting. And I remember there was one time when I was sitting down and it was later at night. So no phone ringing, no doorbell, and the words started moving on the page. And I was like, why won't you let me read this? Like, I didn't understand. And to your point, like, I know now that I wasn't, in order for me to do what I do and get pure truth directly from the universe, I had to have a clean slate, no one else's
Mm,
perspective before I went in.
right.
So
Right.
a lot of these people, like, I'm familiar with the fact that Jay Shetty's a teacher. I hadn't heard of Sam Harris before, but it's not because for lack of interest. It's
Mm,
literally they blocked me. So
right. Right.
you had a similar experience that you were blocked.
Yeah.
It just unfolded in a little bit of a different way, right? But
Yeah.
we're blocked from the things that are not meant to happen in that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so, that was becoming so, it wasn't clear to me, like, in the way that I was understanding at the time, but there's so clearly what was happening at the time. Because at the same time, so what was happening is I was also getting in touch with like a more altruistic worldview. Like, this is what Sam Harris, what inspired me so much about him was because he was interested in philosophy. They were also interested in like ethics and that kind of stuff. And then got interested in like effective altruism and these people that were like doing a lot of work around charity and that kind of, because again, I was still very much on an intellectual level. I didn't know how
Yeah.
much you could change the world from a heart space. But I was, yeah, I was getting very
But
interested.
the
And then,
fact that you were looking to change the world is
yeah,
massive. Like,
yeah,
I don't know where I can do it from, but this is where right now, this is where I believe, and I'm just going to keep going. Like, that's massive, Kyle.
yeah,
Massive,
yeah,
like that was
yeah,
your focus. And
yeah,
that's why it could keep growing, is because you had
yeah,
a focus. And then more
yeah.
information comes in, because every time when your head is down in a focus on making global impact in a way that you're meant to, the universe
Mm,
answers. So when you have a big question and you're
mm,
like, okay, this isn't working, why? Then they're like, try
mm,
this. And you're like, okay,
mm.
you try that. And then you're like, okay, it got me to here, but it's not working now. What else? And they're like,
Yeah,
try this.
yeah,
So
yeah,
there's a pattern, right? There's a synchronicity to
yeah,
everything that happens. It's so cool. But what I love
yeah,
is that you were paying attention to the signs. You were
yeah,
following through, right? Like, even
yeah,
though your brain wasn't knowing that's what you were doing and wasn't
yeah,
necessarily,
exactly.
it wasn't going, yep, pay attention to that one. Check, check. You were doing it.
Yeah,
So it's so
yeah,
cool. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, I love
exactly.
it. Keep going.
Yeah, it's so true. Like again, I kind of look back and see exactly how that's what I was doing. But like you said, my brain didn't know that's what was actually going on. But it was like following the breadcrumbs, and it was waking up all of these kind of truer promptings from me. So, like I said, the hearing people wanting to change the world and do good, I was like, yes, yeah, yeah. Something was just like, yes, and then
Sign
and then
me
I,
up.
yeah, exactly. But then I try to go down paths that weren't right for me. So then I was like, okay, I need to go back, because one of them was effective altruism. I don't know if you know much about it.
Nope.
Um, it's a cool idea, but you can see how
I
it's
can
so
feel
much
it.
from the
Yeah.
mind. Yeah, it was like, how can we do the most good possible? And I love it. It's coming from the
Yeah.
heart, right? But yeah. So one of the ideas was like, because also I knew I had a good intellect, right? So I was like, how can I leverage this? And one of them was like, go get the highest paying job in the world, and then um
Right.
donate all your money to charity or something like that. And so that's what I wanted to try and do. And but
Right.
again, it was blocked
Then you
because I
realize,
was like,
nope, that's not it.
yeah, exactly. But
But you
even
don't
though
know until you know, right? You don't
yeah,
know. But what I
yeah,
love is you were
exactly.
open to everything. You were like, yeah, okay, let's try and do this. And let's try and
Yeah,
make it work. And then it's, as you're trying to make it work, you're like, it's feeling like climbing a mountain. This is
yeah,
not flowing. This
exactly.
is not working. And you're like, okay, screech to
Yeah,
a halt, right? Look for something else. But
yeah,
it's pretty amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And
yeah.
and
And
as you're talking about altruism, like, I'm feeling it, but it's a mental approach to the heart. It's not actually
exactly,
heart energy. It's a mental
exactly.
approach to the heart. So it's not actually the vibration of love, which is really
Yeah,
cool. Oh,
yeah.
cool. Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
wow.
exactly. That's exactly how I would feel it now. But the cool thing was, at the time, it was exactly the approach I needed. It was like the starting on the
Hmm.
mental level, and then eventually realizing that, oh, okay, yeah, it's actually going way deeper, like getting to like
Yes.
foundational stuff, not playing in the same system. And how can I make the most money in this system? Like just on that level,
Yes.
Um,
I love that you
yeah,
appreciate as well that it was what you needed. And I think
mm,
that's a huge part that most people don't get is, you
yeah,
know, especially when it comes to our greatest challenges, right? When
yeah,
we go back, and I actually we did in one of my programs, we'd go back and we record all of, take note of your greatest challenges, and then
mm,
pay attention to what you learned from them. Like do that even tonight, write down all your
yeah,
greatest challenges and then what they taught
yeah,
you, and
yeah, yeah.
how come you're who you are today because of what you learned, right? Like,
Oh
it's
yeah,
such a
yeah.
cool window to look through our challenges. I mean, yeah, when I first started opening and having these experiences, I had ETs come into my house. Oh yeah, I had reptilians, things that were like so far out there in the realm that
Mm,
I was like, WTF? Like, how the heck did this happen? How did I get here? But
yeah.
I had to understand all those things, because ultimately my job is to play in the depths of the universe that are so deep. And my job is to
Right.
understand pure essence as opposed to manipulation essence, and all of those
Right.
and everything in between, so that if I'm holding space for people to heal, I need to know if someone's going to manipulate, right? Because those
Mm,
other ones are the same energies that created the dynamic of this government we're living in. So
mm,
the governing, anyways, this is like really deep stuff, and we don't but at the same time,
mm.
I know that your journey is it's weaving through all of this as well. And it's really
Yeah.
fascinating, right? Like it's
Yeah.
truth comes when we need it,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
because it's not happening, to hurt us or to burden us. It happens when we need it because there's something we need to
Mm.
learn to put in our tool bag so we can carry it forward, right? So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's brilliant. Yeah,
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just so perfectly planned out, everything, like the way truth, answers
Oh
you.
yeah.
And yeah, for me, again, like it's beautiful, like you said, like reflecting on challenge is beautiful because I talk about all of this stuff publicly on YouTube now, and it's so cool to find different ways to talk about it, and just see like how it refines, my own ways of understanding what's happening. Like
Yes.
the more you try and articulate it to somebody else, it's like, oh yeah, it's like this, it's like
Always
that.
learning,
So
right? You're still learning
yeah,
more. You're learning the finite every time. Every time I have
yeah,
a session with a client or I have a conversation with another human being,
yeah,
I'm like, oh, look at that. Okay, super
yeah,
cool. Another way
exactly.
to look at it, another way to see another. And that's
Yeah.
that universal perspective that we're never going to attain in this physical life. But my
Mm,
goal is to do as the best I can and to work as hard
yeah,
as I can to get there. Right. And that's the
exactly.
whole point. So it's brilliant.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, keep
Yeah,
going.
exactly.
Sorry.
Okay. No, I love it. Um, so yeah, around this is something I want to circle back to because we touched on it, and I really like the stuff that you had to say about that relationship, right? Because this was a big deal. So
Yep.
that relationship had ended on a physical level, but we were still keeping in touch. And then yeah, then I was going down this very different path, and it was, you could see that we were going our separate ways now. So I was trying to share all the stuff that was happening with her, and like,
Yep.
these are all the lessons I'm learning. It's so cool. But at the same time, I can also remember how I was projecting my fear onto her. And I was saying, like, be careful if you get COVID, don't do this, don't do that.
Right.
And I could see why, I could just see, because I was still, I still had a lot to learn at that time. And yeah, there was a lot of kind of, eventually that came to a very abrupt end. And that, like, again, that opened up so much that I need to
Yeah.
feel. But to the me at the time, it was like, it was very intense. That, like, that door actually really shutting, because it was like the relationship had ended on kind of good terms. And then there was whatever, there was all these things going on, right?
Yeah.
I was doing this, the work around health, the work around mindfulness, going down this path. And then but what was happening is I kept on trying to cling back onto, like, keep trying to make there still be
Yeah.
even just a friendship, right? To try and keep something
Keep a
there,
connection. Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
a connection. Exactly. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I can see exactly why it needed to end, because we were just going our
Yeah.
separate ways.
You had
But
offered each other what you were meant to offer, and it was time.
yes,
But then there's
exactly.
a part of you that's like, oh, but what if, what if,
Yes,
right? And
exactly.
so it's like, let me just keep offering based on
Mm,
the what if, not on the knowing and the trusting, right? So it's
yeah.
really cool what we see when, and I know this is a lot of our listeners are going to be familiar with this feeling of, doing things on the what if, even though it goes
Mm,
against our instincts, right?
right.
Because your instinct is, I have to go over here, but then the
Mm,
history in the mind tells us, oh, but I still need to offer here. I still want to, I still love, I still,
yeah. Yeah.
care. And but we mix up love and care and history with a burden of still needing to deliver.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is a burden that we choose to carry, even though
Yeah.
what we know. And that's why then there's a hard close, because the universe is like, okay, we've
Yeah.
given you so many opportunities to just let it go. And clearly, that is not what you want to do. You don't want to do it the nice
Yeah.
way. So we're going to be like, hard stop. So what happened with
Yeah.
your hard stop?
Yeah. That's so good. And it's funny. That was like the most instant manifestation that's ever happened where we were that's so funny. We were again, I kept on trying to cling back onto this. And the thing was I was trying to take as well because um I was struggling emotionally. And this was probably the pits of my journey, right? This was like this December, January, December, yeah, December 21, January 2022, where everything that nice feeling we were talking about where it's like, oh yeah, it's all going in the right direction. Now I was coming into contact with some intense stuff and going into like a very deep depression, at that I was starting to believe that I'm never going to recover, like health wise, because I was still looking at things so much through a health perspective. But I talk about it a lot now that played a crucial role in forcing me to let go at a deeper level. But it was all kind of culminating there. So I was starting to lose hope about my health. And then I was trying to, get support from this old relationship.
Yeah.
And, I would, again, I don't think I was being fair to the person. But then at some point, yeah, I was sending these long, I can see why it was so intense for me at the time, actually, because it was, again, it was such a hard like stop. And I felt like I was struggling so much. It was this kind of, it was guilt
Yep.
tripping really as well.
Yep.
And then at some point, she was like, but I knew that like I wasn't able to pull back. So I was like, I thought in my mind, I was like, please just block me. And then like 2 seconds later, like she blocked me. And that was that. Like
It
that
was
was the
done.
end of it was done exactly. And
You know what's really cool? And I think you're going to appreciate this. So, this universe was created on the vibration of love. Okay. So, not the romantic
yeah.
love that we
Mm,
associate with love, but love is a vibration that is within all living things. And
yeah.
it's what helps us recognize each other as sentient beings in this universe. So,
Yeah.
that's how we were created. And 50,000 or some years ago, when all this whole experience started to go offside, the creator decided he was going to let it play out. Okay. And so a few years ago, well, I guess 25 years ago, they started resurrecting and making a plan, right? Like the plan has been going on for a few hundred, like thousand years, really. But in the last few years, it's been more succinct. So, COVID was a
Mm,
reaction to that, right? Because
mm,
the other side was cut off from information from the universal beings. So
mm,
they created COVID as their retaliation, even though it was already planned way before. It's a long, drawn out. But what happened on a universal level is the creator believes in humanity, but he was like, we need to shift.
mm,
And we need to shift. So we on yeah. This is the Coles Notes version, okay? So the very short version, but December 21st, 2021,
yeah.
2021, yeah. It shifted from a universe of love to a universe based on truth.
Okay.
Yes. So when you're saying all these things, I'm like, I'm not surprised. I am not surprised. I'm
Yeah.
also not surprised that truth is your calling. And then,
Mm,
which was really cool, is that that's when everything started to really shift. And then in
yeah.
2022,
Mm,
December, they added in transparency. And transparency is, and what's really funny is if you looked, that's when all these companies started saying, we're using transparency, transparency. So they were presenting themselves in different ways. But
uh,
that was not what transparency, so they were misusing it because what transparency was is you can no longer hide from yourself anymore. So
Right.
that was
Okay.
really cool. And then this past December, they added purity, which is communication and understanding how we communicate with ourselves and with each other. And that's where
Mm,
understanding judgment has, and that's
mm,
why the last 4 months have been so uncomfortable for so many people, especially and
mm,
particularly if you use judgment as your main tool for communication, whether it's, we judge
okay.
ourselves all the time. So anyway, so I
Yeah.
just, the reason I thought I'd share the other two just to make sense of the how the
Yeah.
process works, but I wanted to give you a universal perspective of what was going on as you're
Yeah.
experiencing this leap and this break from this massive,
Yeah.
relationship that impacted you significantly, right? So
Yeah.
it's really
That's
cool.
fast. That's fascinating, right? Because I can see how that ties in with, yeah, my journey is like these shifts. Like specifically this year, like this is again jumping ahead a bit, but this year has been incredible, like for me on like the conversations I've been having with people and the people I've been getting to meet, and it's just amazing. Like yeah,
So
so
cool, right? We get the right people when we're meant to. It's so
yeah,
awesome. I
it's
love it.
amazing. Yeah.
So relationship ended. Where are we now? Now
Yeah,
we're
so
like
that's
dark
like
night of the
yeah,
soul.
exactly right. And also what happened was my mind was interpreting the like no self stuff in a very nihilistic way. So it was like uh and there's no free will. Like this is also what I was picking up from like the philosophy and stuff. And yeah, it was a very like dark night period of yeah, like December, January. That was definitely the worst. I was just every day I was waking up and very like depressed and whatnot. And then I yeah, did you want to say something?
I do. And I want to write it because I didn't say it in our first half of this. And it's really interesting because it's coming again. So depression and anxiety are really fascinating. When I studied
Mm,
them from the universal perspective, depression occurs when truth is being withheld from us. Okay.
mm,
Yes. And anxiety occurs when we are withholding truth from ourselves. So we're resisting seeing it. So
right,
they're
right.
two completely different experiences.
Yeah,
And it makes sense why, 80, 90% of the population of the planet experiences
yeah,
depression because
yeah,
this whole thing is a lie. The whole thing.
yeah,
The
yeah,
whole thing. So, and then when you start to ask questions, it sets you into a spiral of depression because it literally feels like you're hitting your head on a glass ceiling because you're like, I know that this isn't true. And I
yeah,
know this isn't the answer. There's got to be more, but everyone keeps telling me this is it.
yeah,
So that it's really fascinating because when you understand how the mind works in relation to the soul, because
yeah,
the mind is not ever meant to lead. And I feel like what you're coming
yeah,
up to
yeah,
in your journey is that's your shift because
mm,
the soul is meant to lead. The mind is meant to, it's like the mind is like the stoplights when you're driving. And it's like,
yeah,
danger, caution, go.
yeah,
That's all the mind is meant to do. It's not meant to direct, it's not meant to
yeah,
make changes. It has no authority because it doesn't have any awareness. It only knows
yeah,
what you've been told, what you've heard, what you've read, what you've seen. It only knows the past. Your
yeah, yeah,
brain has zero capacity for the present or the future. Zero.
yeah, yeah,
So it perpetuates depression and anxiety because it
yeah,
wants to keep you in that same state of being from the past. Anyways,
yeah,
I wanted to share that because when we can understand how the mind works, it
mm,
alleviates
mm,
the pressure that of
yeah,
these things that we think are wrong with us when they're not wrong. We're just,
yeah, yeah,
there's nothing wrong with us. No one's broken.
yeah,
Everything is just misunderstood. And
yeah,
when you can
yeah,
come back to the truth of how it really is, then the depression melts away, the anxiety melts away. I'm
yeah,
not saying
yeah,
I don't have those things sometimes. I have them, but I
mm,
know when it happens, it's because either it's being withheld or I'm withholding it from myself. Super simple.
mm,
It's really
mm.
cool now.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I think it's so important to have that perspective because it's such a yeah, it's a thing so many people are struggling with. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So that that period, yeah. So this is where belief started to become important for me. Was um, I started to get access now to recovery stories, and this was massively shifting for me. So I found this amazing YouTube channel called Red and Eagle. I don't know if you've heard of it. She talks
no.
a lot about, so it's very much it's not like spiritual, it's like chronic illness recovery and health and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But it's a beautiful resource because we were talking earlier about how much negative like stuff there is about staying stuck and all of that with these
Yes.
kind of things. And now I was coming across this channel where she just interviews people who have recovered, and they start, sharing how they got out of this. And again,
Yes.
it's like it's starting to resonate things in yourself. And what happened at that point was I realized that, oh, I actually can recover. And then I remember this was like some insight. I was journaling a lot throughout this process, which was really helpful. And I wrote like a whole lot, like three, after listening to somebody's recovery story, and I realized that I'd been looking at it the wrong way. It was like she became something else. She didn't go back to her old life, which was what I had been trying to do for like the first year and a half. And that's when I got,
Magic moment. Oh,
yeah, it was huge. I remember at the time, I was like, it was funny. I still had so much to work through, but I remember like going around like telling my parents, I was like, this is it. I've got it. I know what I need to do. But it was like one thing clicking into place, but it was the foundation of everything else. It was like,
those
um,
moments. And those are the best moments because it
yeah,
brings what you've been trying to do for the last 3, 4 years into perspective to say,
yeah,
okay, now I know how to shift it and bring it all forward,
yeah,
right? And sometimes, like for you, it was not even that. It was recognizing, like I can feel it because I mean, these are those moments, that
yeah,
for me, they're the biggest high because
yeah.
those are the moments of awakening. All the pieces fit, right? So
Mm, mm,
you not only did you see, that I'm not going back, it was this freeing sense of I don't
mm,
have to go back to that guy who was searching either.
mm,
I don't have to
mm,
go back to the guy who was performing for everybody else and not being authentic
yeah,
for himself, right? So
yeah,
there's so many levels and layers. And what I also feel is that's when your love for yourself started. That's
yeah,
when your
exactly.
genuine love for you. And that's
Yeah,
massive. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Keep
so I'm
going.
glad you brought that up. So yeah, I remember that like that whole journal piece was about like, oh, I have to become my most authentic self. That was like the key takeaway from that whole breakthrough was like, okay, this journey isn't about going here, it's not about going there, it's about a journey into authenticity. And that it followed along from there like so much. And then self-love as well. So what happened then is I went and did this brain retraining course, which was all about kind of trying to rewire your nervous system to heal from these chronic illnesses. And I read a bunch of books before that, like because I didn't feel like at the time that I had the money to kind of pay for one of the courses, but eventually when I was willing to, like I knew I
Yep.
did have the money, but I just had to get to that space where I was willing to spend the money.
Yep.
Um, again, like I see this so many times where like we
Uh,
can make things happen, but if we don't want to, we can find every reason that we can't make it happen.
our beliefs shape our life. Yep.
Yeah,
100%.
exactly. So this was where belief and self-love, this was like the two keys in this stage. Was the books I was reading were very much about, yeah, like the retraining the mind, and it was looking at beliefs around recovery and seeing how you will see exactly what you're looking for. And again, I was in this very dark state at the time, so reading these books, it was like, oh, I really need to do some work on this, on my mindset, on all of that. And I did that for like the next, I don't know, maybe 6 months. I did this course. And again, it wasn't what my mind thought was happening at the time. But if I
Yep.
go back and I talk about it now to share with other people, I'm like, this was my entry into self-love. So the course was about, I'd been doing meditation then, and I was trying everything I could to calm my nervous system, right? I'd learned that this was my problem, that my nervous system was, like we were talking about, stuck in this hyper-stimulated state. But I was trying to get it out through the same patterns, right? I was trying to like,
Yep.
how do I stop my nervous system? And then I'd like sit there and try and like, okay, I need to get into a calm state, and like trying doing,
Yep.
instead of learning how to let go of that. So what I learned from the brain training course was a way to work with myself and to work with the part of myself that was kind of off, like off center, that was kind of the traumatized part of the self, or the part of the brain that's gone into overdrive.
Yeah.
I was learning how to talk to that with love, as opposed to trying to
Judgment.
like get, yes, exactly, as opposed to judgment, as opposed to trying to say like, I need to fix this part of myself. It was more like, and another big thing was like learning that I could work with myself. That was the big takeaway there,
Right.
was like, yeah, it's like
Yes.
you
You
can
can
you
do
can
it
be
yourself.
you can do it yourself.
Magic.
Exactly. Like I'd
Yep.
always been, that was the thing with the relationship, and even the psychologist and everybody I worked with, I was always looking for somebody else to give me love,
Yeah.
where it was like, oh wow, you can step into these different roles for yourself, and give love to the part of yourself that needs it. And I started, this
Love
was
that.
really,
I
yeah, this
love
was
that.
really important.
That's just such a profound message for so many people. Yeah.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
give you can give love to yourself, and that's really, when you begin attracting the right people and the right
Mm,
experiences, because now
mm,
you're
yeah.
embodying a vibration of respect and compassion
Mm,
and truth for of
yeah.
yourself towards yourself, right? So that
Yeah.
now you're putting that vibration out into the world, and those are the people that start to come, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
exactly. I've
yeah.
realized that so much now, because you're not trying to like take from somebody else's energy anymore or something like that. You're like, oh,
Yes.
okay, I've
You're
I've got
full. You're
exactly, I've got
full.
everything I need here, and
Yes.
now we can do cool things together. We can, or you can like
Yes.
give to somebody else that I can feel is like authentic. I was like, well, I'll give you the
Yes.
world because you're authentic, right? But if
Yeah.
you're like inauthentic and trying to play games with me, then like you said, you don't want to
Yeah.
judge, but at the same time, you have to kind of manage
There's a
your,
difference though between judgment and knowledge, and knowing, nope, this is not right for me.
yeah,
That's not judging. That the
yes,
judging
exactly.
would be, this person doesn't deserve me because blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
judgment. But it's
exactly.
this, no, we're just not the right fit. Let's move on.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, exactly.
fundamentally different. Yeah. Yeah. Love
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
no, beautiful. Yeah.
So where are you going from now, from this place?
Yeah,
Now you've
so
got
I
this self-love, and now you've got this
yeah.
new tool to take on the universe. What'd you do with it, Kyle?
So what was important was I spent money on this course as well. So that was good for me at the time, because it made me, so they basically gave you like exercises to do every day.
Yeah.
And I was again, there was still so much like self-criticism in me. Like the same lady that's the mindfulness kind of health coach that I was working with, she was also introducing me to self-compassion and self-love. Like she picked that up in me. She was like, I was talking about all the things I'm doing to try and sort out my health, and I'm just getting it all wrong, and I just don't know what to do. And she was like, maybe we should work on like self compassion or something, because I feel like you just need a hug. Like you're just trying so hard, and yeah, it was exactly the case. It was like that
Yeah.
was the work that then needed to happen, was the self love. And so I was doing these exercises like every day, and it was very cool. I remember like voice journaling to try, and at the same time, this was like when the intellectual awakening was starting to happen. Yeah, on the intellectual level, where I was like, all of it was coming together, and I was like, wow, like I'm on this, like what the actual heck, like there's all these problems and everything, but because at the
Yes.
same, like I was still
I
like
love that
into
you
the
edited
physical.
your language there.
Yeah, the
Uh-huh.
PG version.
Yep. What the heck is really going on right now? Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm this like ape on a rock, and like flying through space, and I was like interested in evolution and all of that, and I was just like, yeah, how did I get here? It was just starting to become so mysterious, and but yeah, no longer like it was kind of through that dark night phase a bit, where it was like, but it was still fluctuate so much. This is why I was kind of recording my sessions, because when I was doing this, like I started to take a much more intuitive approach. Like it
Yeah.
was very kind of stepwise initially, and I was finally learning to like, oh, when I just kind of let myself do these exercises, and I could feel the love bit was what was really working for me. Where I was like, okay, it's okay. And I would talk to myself, and then I recorded it. And then I would always try to record something or speak to myself about something about like, just remember like the vastness of the universe, and like how, like the craziness of all of this, like shifting myself into like a different perspective on things, as opposed to, the mindset that I had been stuck in.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, so that served itself for a while, and the same thing, now my health was opening up, right? So now for the first time I was, I was doing things again, like
Starting to
stepping
feel
into
better.
yeah, like growing my boundaries again, because also like stepping out of the fear. This was what this helped with a lot, was like doing things that I'm afraid to do, and then work with the fear that comes up, or work with what comes up
Yes.
out of that, so it's like take a
Yep.
step into, like, oh, I can't do that kind of exercise, we'll do it the tiniest little bit, and then see what comes up, so yeah, doing all of that. At the same time, I went to my first meditation retreat around this kind of time, which was very, uh, very helpful for me. Then it was like, it was a big step into the unknown. It was
Yep.
like, there was a lot of, again, it came down to like the last minute, like to book the retreat. Like my part of my mind was like, oh, like, what should I do it? I shouldn't do it. And then, um, like I
And then you
literally
did
did
it.
it the last the last possible second. Yeah, and yeah, it was exactly what I needed.
Yep.
And it really opened the door for me to, so now I was starting to shift more into, after that, into much more meditation, because I it shattered a bunch of my beliefs about how much I could meditate, where I was always like, I would sit for like, 20 minutes or something, and it would start to, uh that was like my limit. I was like, yeah, I
Yes.
can't sit here any longer, this is excruciating. So sometimes it would be incredibly peaceful,
Yes.
but yeah, there was strong beliefs around how long I could sit for. And that was the power in that retreat. Was It wasn't a very intense one, it was perfect, again, for what I needed at the time. It was like, 3 hours a
Yep.
day, was mixed in with yoga and a lot of nature. And the first time I was now meeting a whole different, set of people, where I was like,
Right.
because I'd been a very lonely journey, for like the last 2 years up to that point, where I
Yep.
had kind of cut off myself from the rest of the world. So yeah, now I was meeting people, and I
Opening
was
the
like,
doors
wow,
again, right? Yes. And
yeah,
not only that, but
exactly,
you're meeting people who now you have common ground to talk to, because when
exactly,
you started shifting, right, and you tried to take the other people along, it didn't
yes,
click anymore because the vibration had changed.
yeah,
And so, and it's an awkward stage, right? Because it's like, oh, I have so many memories with this person. We had so much fun. And why isn't it connecting now?
yeah,
Like, why is it
yeah,
awkward when we get together? And the reality is, we just have different interests and we've just gone in different directions. We
yeah,
outgrow the friendship, but it doesn't mean we've gone ahead or behind that person. It's just we've
yeah,
outgrown the dynamic. We don't have to close doors and slam doors. We leave it
yeah,
ajar and we go on with our life, and
yeah,
things happen,
yeah,
right? But I love
yeah.
that.
And yeah, what I love what you said about like leaving the door ajar, because that's exactly what it's been later on now. Is like, as I, went on my own path, then it's like so many friendships that were surface level have now, some you do just kind of, but
Yep.
again, the door is there. If they come at some point and they're like going through their awakening journey, I'll be like, hey, let's talk. Like, this is amazing.
Yes.
And
Right.
there have been,
100%. Yes.
yeah, and there have been friends that I would never have imagined. Like, it was like, oh yeah, this, there was a time where my mind was like, oh yeah, I'm past that friendship now, and now they're back, and it's very interesting. So
It's
yeah,
nice,
like
right?
it's not like doors are closed, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think the mind can often perceive it like, oh, okay, I have to let go. Yeah, maybe in that moment, but who knows where it's going in the future.
And it's remembering that you're letting go of the dynamic at that
Mm,
stage of the relationship. You're not letting go of
yeah,
that person, right? Like for me,
yeah,
I
yeah,
lost interest in superficial conversations. I
yeah,
lost interest in conversations where people wanted to debate one
yeah.
one side or the other, because I have this ability to get universal truth right away, instantly. I
Mm,
don't have to go out and research it. And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
it was tricky for a bit, because like friends and family don't want to believe that you can do that. They're like, whatever, right? And they're like, it's all just in your mind and it's just your perspective and your opinion. And I'm like, okay, no, no.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
got old quick too. So,
Yeah.
those relationships dried up.
Yeah.
It dried up because neither of us could meet each other where we were.
Yes.
And
Yes. Exactly.
and
Yeah.
some have come back and they flourished because we've all been able to
Mm,
grow together. And others, to
yeah.
your point, we just sort of, it's arm's length, and we see each other on those, you know, experiences and where you have to. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's the door is never slammed shut. I
Yeah.
never look at
Yeah.
it like that
Exactly.
person's a lost cause. No, no,
Yeah.
because that would be horrible. Because the way I
Yeah.
look at my journey is it's a constant evolution. I'm always
Yeah.
changing. I'm a new
Exactly.
person every day because every day I'm
Yeah.
learning more,
Yeah.
period. And I
Yeah.
know the only one thing that I know for sure is I know very little, you
Yeah.
know,
Exactly.
right? Like I don't really know much at all. And yet I have the ability to instantly know anything I need to know, because
Mm,
when we have questions, it's because we need to know or we want to know that answer now. It
mm,
was it relevant 20 years ago? No. Was it relevant
mm.
in those, even in those relationships that we outgrew? No.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
is, I'm also not going to take what I'm learning now and keep talking about it for the next 15, 20 years, because I have new things to learn. And
Yeah.
yet,
Exactly.
we're having this amazing conversation, and there's pieces here from your childhood, there's pieces from my childhood and my journey,
Yeah.
because those pieces fit together in the conversation, and it's fun, right? It's
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
to be able to
Exactly.
sprinkle them into the conversation, and yet we're both still growing through the conversation because we're
Yeah.
both in the space of accessing universal awareness while we're having a
Yeah.
conversation. And these are my favorite conversations. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fundamentally different than going into a conversation with someone who wants to debate a topic. Well, my perspective is, and
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that's cool, but are you open to the
Yeah.
universal perspective? Because I don't even give
Yes.
my perspective anymore, because it I don't want to. I don't want to. I just want to go to the truth, the universal truth right away. It's way more
Yeah.
efficient.
Why would you
And it's
if
so
you have access
exciting,
to
right?
that? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
you're now in this place of, you're welcoming in past friends, they're coming back, and you're
Mm.
having conversations that, well, quite frankly, you probably never thought you would have with these people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So how did that
Exactly.
feel?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of yeah, that's where I am now. Should we talk about that or should
Mm,
I like carry on the
sure. Whatever you want, wherever you feel. We've been talking for a couple hours now, and you must be tired because it's 9 o'clock
yeah.
at night for you.
I mean, I've got energy still.
All right, let's
And
go.
there's still a few yeah important shifts I want to get to. So I'll try and I've been
Yeah.
going a little bit into too much detail into some stuff
Okay,
maybe,
I'll stop
but
talking.
no, I love it. So what happened? I came to this point where uh I started to make a study of resistance because I started to read spiritual books, and again, more things were clicking into place. And what was happening is I kind of outgrew the usefulness of the brain retraining approach that I was doing. This kind of trying to force things a certain way because there was emotions that needed to be dealt with and things that needed to be dealt with from a space of unconditional love and acceptance. And I was trying this program. It was great, but my mind was still trying to like, oh, but I must run away from the fear because the fear is bad, and this, I must focus on the positive and not the negative. And it served its purpose. It got me out of the victim mindset and all of that. But then I came across by far the biggest teacher that I ever came across was this guy. His name's Angelo DeLulo, and he was talking very. Do you know his work at all?
No.
Okay, so he was talking very directly about the awakening process, and
Okay.
everything started to click into place now. Then it was
Right.
finally clear. The shift went completely away from health, where it was like, oh, okay, health was just awakening happening in
It
a
was the tool you
certain
used to get to where you
yeah,
are, and it was brilliant, and it served you very well. And now you
yeah,
understand that there was a much bigger purpose to all of it.
Exactly.
That must have
Yeah, it
been a
was.
massive moment, like just and a
Oh
moment
yeah.
that like lasted, but you were like, it's like mind blowing. It's like my brain
Yeah.
just blew up, and
Yeah.
no one else on the planet is really going to understand how significant this is for me, right? Did you
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
feeling?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
I get
did. I
that often.
remember. I remember that like one of the biggest ones was I was listening because my mind was still keeping it separate. So I came into contact with his work and I was getting interested in awakening. And he was the clearest teacher for me by a country mile. Like I had gotten really into this space of spiritual insight teachers. So very much people talking about non-duality and seeing through the illusion of the self and like yeah from Buddhist traditions and that kind of stuff and incredible insight, but
Yeah.
there were still barriers in my mind. And then I came through Angelo and he was talking so clearly. And then, yeah, the drop happened when my mind was still saying that, oh, maybe I can't wake up because of my health, right? It was still perceiving this separation that like, yeah, oh, but you know, I can't go on the intense retreats that these people are going on to kind of get to the roots of themselves because of my health. And then I was listening to one of his talks one day where he was talking with a bunch of people and he said, uh, yeah, it's incredible how this process will play out in your life. Like there's nothing that's separate from it at all. And for some people, it plays out as these like mysterious health problems. And I just like I just started rolling around with laughter. I was like, oh my goodness, it's the same process. Like that was that like moment where it was like such a relief. And I was just laughing. I was like, wow, like this he's talking about this whole health journey I've been on, and I thought this awakening thing was separate, and it's like it's the same thing. That was like massive. It was so big. And
It's so fascinating. And even just in the last couple of weeks, I've been exploring um, where the health crisis started and how it started.
mm,
And it's amazing because it was created the moment that they trained humans to believe that healing came from outside of us.
right, right.
And because we're created to be self-sustaining. We're
Yeah,
literally self-sustaining beings.
yeah,
And the moment that they got that belief, right? So again, back to beliefs. Everything is beliefs, right? The
yeah,
secret of the universe, right, is
yeah,
intention becomes energy becomes experience, and
yeah,
intentions are your beliefs. That's
yeah,
you cannot create intentions outside of your belief system. It's impossible. So if you
yeah,
want bigger intentions, you got to break down every belief that's
yeah,
in the
yeah,
way, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's so cool. Like right now I'm working with a group of humans, and we're restoring our ability to create pyramids, like things that were done way before this current experience of humans, where humans could fly. And to a lot of people, they're like, whatever, and they roll their eyes. And I'm like, it doesn't matter, because
Yeah,
authenticity. So authentic is the true origin of
yeah,
true origin. And I went, okay, I want to know the true origins of humanity. Not
yeah.
just like, not authentic doesn't mean just being truth. It means the true
Mm,
origin. And
mm,
when I really got that, and I was like, yep, that's what I want. I want to go all the way back. And so that's what I like when you're talking about ancient civilizations, like those are my jam. Like this is like the ones that they
mm,
can't explain because it doesn't make sense, right? Like, we see in old
mm.
books where they have depictions of men, right? Like millions of men, or thousands or even hundreds of slaves, with these cantilever pieces of wood trying to get these rocks up there. I'm like, no, 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 no,
There had to be
no.
another way.
There,
Yeah.
it wasn't, and that's the thing. But that belief, again, is that we in this society have believed that ancient humans were archaic.
Mm,
So that's
mm,
how they built that. That's how
yeah.
and now this entire civilization is all slaves. We're all slaves.
Mm,
Everyone who has
mm,
a payment to anybody for anything is a slave,
mm, mm.
which is kind
Yeah.
of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. It's interesting. That's the space that I've started exploring more recently. Like, yeah, like really the whole different way of being in the, I don't know how you call it, like in the collective or whatever. That it's like, oh wow, you don't need to like be do anything that you don't want to do. Really, it's like
Oh,
this was some of, yeah, the later teachers that really helped me, and it was more like friends slash teachers, but like yeah, it shift
and
from
everyone's a teacher, but it's also
yeah,
understanding
yeah,
that you get to a point where you're guiding now, right? And
yes,
that's the difference. Like when you're in this space, you're guiding, which is now it's become a sacred journey, right? It's
mm,
become a journey of the seeker, a journey of the soul, of higher learning.
mm,
And,
mm,
that happens when you reach that state of being that you can't go back. That's what they're showing me. So
mm,
you can't go backwards, but you also don't yet have enough information to go forwards.
mm,
And
mm,
that becomes the seeker. You need the
mm, mm.
information to go forwards because you can't stay where you are. It's too uncomfortable,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? And it's
yeah.
impossible. And that's where the people that are going to change the world, that's where they exist in a constant state.
Yeah. But what's been beautiful for me now is it's like that, so much of that discomfort, like the discomfort is like, yeah, if it's like you kind of, you said that anxiety of like holding yourself back from something, but
Yep.
now it all just feels like flow, like just perfection, if that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
just like when what you're talking about with the love, right? I just feel that more and more clearly, like as this unfolds, it's just like everything feels like love, like the fun, like you said, the fun, even, you said like maybe the kind of main things of the universe has shifted over the years. It's just like I feel that so strongly nowadays, like the
Yeah.
unconditional love that's at the root of everything, like,
Well,
and that's
and
what's moving everything is
oof,
unconditional love.
it's yeah, it's an understand. Well, love is that recognition of existence itself.
Mm,
And like can you feel that? Like it's an understanding that you were created to fulfill a higher purpose that your mind will never have a full comprehension of, but your soul knows and does it automatically because that's your
yeah,
existence. And then when you come into a human physical life, that physical life becomes an extension of what your soul is meant to be doing here in the universe. And you're doing it on the physical realm as well. So
yes,
it's really cool because what they're showing me is, you know, that's the love that you're feeling. It's that recognition of self that is
right,
so
right,
deep
right,
that you
yeah,
don't often have words to describe it because it's
yeah.
bigger than words, right? It's
Yeah, absolutely.
it's bigger. And it's tricky because you try and I mean, I know how many times I try to put something into words and you're like, oh, there's no words for this,
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
And yet, you also have this finite imagination isn't the right word, but it's close in the sense of you have an awareness of what's possible for human
Mm,
existence itself.
mm,
And it's a
mm.
foundational awareness, which means that it's there even if your mind hasn't caught up with it yet.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what keeps propelling you
yeah,
through the storm because
yeah, yeah.
it's true. Like you pick up, it's like, when it's on a boat and you're going through this stormy waters and there's a storm and like trees are blowing at you and, debris is coming at you. And all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I got to pick this person up and put them on my boat. And then all of
Mm,
a sudden this animal over here needs saving. And this, concept, like they're different concepts. Sometimes they're people and sometimes they're teachers,
mm,
but it's you that's propelling through everything. And you're the
right.
one that all of a sudden then you're like, okay, the load's too heavy. That teacher's got to go. And, and then this,
Yeah.
this like person I'm helping has got to go. And then all of a sudden three more show
Mm,
up and you're like, okay, this is great. Right. Like, and it's
mm,
exciting, but
mm,
that's evolution. It's the,
mm,
the
mm.
thirst and the joy of knowledge, the joy of new
Mm,
experience, right? Because knowledge and experience together becomes wisdom. And
mm,
that's
mm.
why when you were younger, you had a whole bunch of knowledge stuck in there and you're like, but it's, what am I going to do
Yeah,
with it? Like, what the heck am I
yeah,
going to do? It's just a bunch of stuff,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Book
exactly.
smart is
Okay.
just a bunch of stuff. Until you
Yeah,
have firsthand experience, you have no wisdom.
yeah,
And this
so
is
true.
where, like, when you were saying succeed, like, I want to succeed, and you were talking about that at the beginning. And that's what I feel like the biggest part of your journey has been so far is an awareness of what you thought you needed and who you needed to be to succeed, and who that awareness of what that's become and what it looks like
Mm,
now.
mm,
That was the first part of your journey. That was,
mm,
the part that said, all the things I value weren't actually valuable. And now you
mm,
have a new
mm.
foundation of what value actually is.
Yeah, yeah,
And now you're learning to use your voice. And that's why they needed to get that growth out of
yeah,
there, because now you're at the place where communication needs to go more freely. And you need to
yeah,
be at that space where, information can come in, but it's also moving out more
yeah,
freely, right?
yeah,
And, because we come to a place where, and you're right in this place, like you've had a lot of teachers along the way, you've had a lot of mentors, you've had a lot of people who have brought great awarenesses to your journey.
mm,
And you're at this place where you're meant to be that person for others in a
mm,
way that
yeah,
you don't yet understand. And why I
yeah,
say that is because your voice is growing.
yeah,
And like, it's really cool because it's like, it'll show me like it's stretching over here and then it's stretching over there. Like, it's not going to grow like you would think, like a normal animal or mammal or whatever
yeah,
human grows, like they just get bigger everywhere. It's like, no, I'm going to stretch over here. Okay. And then I need to grow here. And then I need to grow there. And then it's like, and then they're showing me it's almost like that. Oh, I said too much. But I learned
mm,
in the process that, because your first instinct would be, the old Kyle would be like, oh, I got to stuff that back in. Like, I want to take that
mm.
back. I don't want to, right? Like, let me stuff it back in. But it's really funny because they're saying, but you're going to resist those urges now. Those are beyond, you've
Mm,
grown beyond them. And you're at the
mm,
place now to carry your wisdom forward, to carry it
yeah,
to a place of sharing it. They want you to read a book. It's called The 40 Rules of Love.
okay.
It's an amazing book. I can't remember the name of the author, but there's only one. She's
I'll
she's
I'll
amazing.
find it.
It's so good. Yes,
Okay.
it's so good. But it's understanding, that book depicts the understanding of the roles of both mentor and student, and you're shifting
Yeah.
from one to the other, and
Mm,
it's it's uncomfortable, and yet it's
mm,
exciting at the same time. And they are
mm,
showing me that you may find that you'll have some of those old sensations of that dark night of the soul coming up a little bit again in the next few weeks, few months, and
okay.
from time to time over the next few years. But
Mm,
know
mm.
that when they're coming, it's because you're ready for a new up level, like a new
Yeah. Yeah.
spike in what
Yeah.
your belief system can comprehend, right? Like, we're
Yeah.
going to blow it wide open, so buckle up.
Mm,
Right?
mm.
and
Yeah.
and and it does, it looks like the dark night of
Yeah.
the soul, but really it's just a mass stretching of those beliefs, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That resonates so much. Yeah. With what's been just clarifying for me over this year, and the input that I've been receiving as well has been telling me that exact same thing, is like shifting more into out of the student role, because that was like, there was so much you know, when wisdom and insight, and there was like beliefs that I just, you know, I'm not ready to talk yet. I was still talking about it, but I was
Yeah.
holding myself back in like what I was allowing myself to express. And then it's incredible the feedback that you get instantly when anytime I would make a video where I just would express myself way more or do this, then it would just feel like the best video I've recorded, and the feedback would be amazing. And it was just pushing me more and more in this direction of, and just, yeah, other friends that I got, friends from the same path, saying step more into your own light, you know. I'd been so focused again on truth and wisdom and insight, and I still feel like there's space for that, but it's the roles are definitely shifting like that. Yeah,
And as you step into your role, you're going to find more of the truth and the wisdom.
exactly,
That's right.
exactly. Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so, and that's what it is.
exactly.
So when your intention is more truth and wisdom, and they're like, okay, well, you have to do this, you have to up level
Mm,
yourself to
yeah,
access
yeah,
more. And that's where the brain's like, but I'm
exactly.
not ready, I don't want to do it that way. Like I do that all the time. They're like, well, you have
Yeah.
to go do this in the world, and I'm like, no, I want to do my way, but I still want this awareness, and it doesn't work that way. They're
It
like, no,
doesn't.
you
No,
have to up
exactly.
level, and
Yeah,
you have to
yeah.
elevate everything you're doing. And yeah, so I love, so what are you doing now? Where are
Mm,
you, like, I know you're podcasting. Are you
mm.
using the podcast to bring awareness to this journey?
Yeah. So yeah, the work I'm doing now is, yeah, it's like, um I make videos about helping people with healing, but also tying in uh the yeah, trying to tie in like things that maybe perspectives that I can share that other people aren't talking about, you know, like perspectives on um awakening and chronic illness, and like all of these things that I see teachers that I really like that maybe haven't actually had the same insights that I've had. So talking about that, yeah, I kind of give more of my own flavor to these things, and then yeah, conversations with people, like, yeah, reaching out to people that I really like to have conversations with, and seeing, and that opens me up, like you said, like all of
Yes.
this stuff. It was like there was, yeah, this was something that dropped like a couple months back. It was like this feeling that I'm not ready. And like kind of like how you were saying it, right? It was like I'm not ready, and then I have to do it anyways. And then realizing on the other side of that you're never gonna feel ready. Like you never
Never.
that's you never
Never.
feel ready. And then the most amazing things happen though. Like the incredible conversations and people I've met was just taking that leap and being like, okay, I've got to do this. Um
Yeah.
yeah. So
And
that, yeah.
well, what I yeah, what I love is that I'm I'm even seeing um your tentativeness in sharing it. And what I mean by that is
Mm,
you're so much more powerful, Kyle, than even saying, like,
mm.
you know, own that it's not so much
Yeah.
they're not seeing it. It's focusing on the fact that you're seeing how all these different pieces go together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you put them together, what they reveal.
Yeah.
That's really your sweet spot right now.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you continue to, offer that perspective of, okay, so we have this perspective and this perspective and this perspective, but when they mash them all together, boom, this
Mm.
comes out of it. Like, you know,
Yeah.
because remember, we go back to your brain and how quickly it works, right? It's
Yeah. Yeah.
fascinating because you, and what I mean by that, okay, is you're still using your intuition, but you also, like, I couldn't do what you do. My brain
Mm. Yeah.
cannot follow a conversation like that. It has no
Yeah.
capacity to do that. My brain shuts
Yeah.
down in order for me to do what I do. Like, even having this
Yeah.
conversation now, my brain is only on about 25 to 30%.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's shut down so that I can be in the energy all the time, because to be honest with you, it's way more fun to be in energy than it is to be
Yeah.
in the mind, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and what you're going to do is, like, they're showing me, it's like, this is your sword, this is your special superpower, and the
Mm.
more you let yourself sink into it, settle into it, understand and own
Mm.
it, then the more truth that you're going to actually start to uncover. It's
Yeah.
like that sword is just going to cut right through, and it's like you're going to rip it wide open instead of like
Right.
taking a little slice off the edge here and a slice off
Yeah.
there. Just stick it right through the heart and open it wide up and go, okay, let's go here. And what they're
Yeah.
saying is, over the next few days, because you're so good at feeling, especially now, write down and in your journaling, how powerful it is.
Mm,
Write down what kind of truths you want to be working with, what kind
right.
of awarenesses you want to be revealing,
Yeah.
and why.
Yeah.
What part of the healing aspects are you fascinated by?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because those are your two sweet spots.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I find, like, as I journal it, I'll think about it and then I'll write it. And then I'm like, oh, and that, and that. And then all of a sudden the first one's like, oh, it's not so good. I thought it was good, but that's not really where I wanted to be. I want to be way down here on like my idea 20, where I didn't even know that was possible. Don't
Yeah.
limit when you're writing them down. Don't limit. No,
Okay.
I'm not
Yeah.
ready. No, I can't do that. Who do I think I
Yeah.
am? Get rid of
Yeah.
all those limiting
Yeah.
beliefs. Yeah, blow them out of the water.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
And,
that's
and,
true. Yeah. I can it's the same that I was working with this energy healer recently, and it's incredible the stuff that she was picking up through my energy, and like yeah, so much around like limiting my expression, and also yeah, one of the things that came up recently was like it's a and we touched on this a little bit earlier, was like it's okay to get things wrong, whereas like clearly there was something in me that was uh yeah, trying to say everything in the way that I don't like get it wrong, where because like
yeah,
what came up for me now when you were talking was to um speak about more what I really truly want to speak about, as opposed to what
you
yeah,
think
this
you
there
should.
is yeah, there's
What's,
still some
yeah.
there's still some of that where it's like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be talking about. And it keeps shifting, and then but it needs to keep shifting where like the mind is like, okay, now this is what I talk about. But I like that
Yes.
I have to get more in touch with really what do I want to talk about. And for me, it always comes back to the most universal truths. Like that's what like in all the different things that
Yep.
I'm yeah, it's like what okay, but how does
Hands
this all
down.
tie in? How does this all tie in together, right? Because you got that
Yeah.
perspective and you got that perspective, and I see how they link, but you don't realize that your perspective links with your perspective, and how like yeah, how does that happen? Yeah.
And the other thing that I have really understood, is there's only one truth. There's only one
Mm,
truth. So
mm,
everyone can have a perspective on it, but there's still only one
mm.
truth. And
Yeah.
I, it's really powerful and it's a really important lesson. And I help a lot of people get to that place because it's so important to understand, because when we're in that place of there's different perspectives. And my one of the sayings that drives me the most crazy is, well, this is my truth. That's somebody clearly saying, I'm not interested in truth.
Yeah,
I want
exactly,
you
exactly.
to honor how I feel and come to the pity party with me. That's really what they're
Yeah,
saying, because there's
yeah,
no such thing as my truth and your truth, right? There's
yeah,
different
yes,
perspectives of an experience, but there's still only one truth of it.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
I feel like you also needed to get that perspective clarified in your head, so
yeah,
that you can really be like, oh, okay, well, if there's only one truth, let's go right in. Like that's the
yeah,
sword. Like let's go in, let's whip it, like rip it wide
yeah,
open, and let's
yeah,
just go. And
yeah, it's true.
it's going to be a wild ride, and it's going to be
Yeah.
intense very quickly, because you're at the place where you have the capacity to withstand it. So,
Mm, mm,
you know, resist the urge to feel overwhelmed. um,
yeah.
and when it starts to get overwhelming, that's, pull back right away
Mm,
before you go to the dark place and second guessing yourself. Pull back right away and go, okay, what doesn't feel right?
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and have the people in your life where you can talk things through, and they're not going to need to create the solution for you. They're going to listen to you talk it through. Because for me, the most powerful thing that I do when I'm going through my stuff, there's
Mm.
another word for that, but we'll just, yeah, when you're going through it, is talking it through, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
talking
it's
it
true.
through and getting it out. Because when we don't, it sits in our head and it
Mm.
jumbles and and that's like, you went through years of that.
Mm.
So,
Yeah,
and there'll
exactly.
definitely be parts of you and times when the pressure starts to come, and you're going to, because you're meant to be so successful. And again, not
Mm.
successful, the old Kyle's version of
Yeah, yeah,
success, this new
yeah,
Kyle's, success. And then what happens is, once that starts, your brain is going to want to go back to, okay, so
yeah.
how do I manage this? And you're going to go back to and then you're going to go, wait a minute. I remember I learned the hard
Yeah,
way. I don't want to do this again.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
you're, yeah, you're just on such a beautiful path. How are you feeling right now physically? How's your neck feeling?
Uh,
Is it still
I
tight?
can I
Yeah.
can still feel there's something
Oh
there.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not like gone.
Would you
Yeah,
like would you like me to shift it out of there for you?
yeah, I'd love that. Yeah.
So I can shift it out, but it's not going to be sustained until you decide to start communicating more fully. Okay.
Okay.
So
What?
I'm going to shift it and open the space so you can feel what it feels like. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to do it with your soul. So that it's tricky to explain. So there's difference between physical healing, like those are like modalities, and people who work in energy modalities, and there's soul healing and there's universal healing. So we're working with your soul, and soul is complete. So it doesn't have to be maintained or done. But if you're not ready for it, you're going to shut it down again. So you're going to put
Right.
stuff in the way anyways, right? So there's a difference between that. And then there's, it's like, you may not be familiar with this, but like 20 years ago, it was a big thing to everyone be like, cleanse yourself. If you work with other people with energy, and then cleanse yourself after, and cleanse yourself and cleanse yourself. And, you know, I learned very quickly that when you work with the soul, you if you set proper intentions, and if you, again, attention is your beliefs, right? And
Yeah.
then you don't have to cleanse yourself, because you're always clean. You're not walking around, like I'm not walking around picking
Mm,
up your stuff when I'm inside of you,
mm,
but I'm not really
mm,
inside of you. I have full
mm,
awareness of you, and I can see everywhere inside you. I can feel how it feels to be in you, but I don't need to take you on me,
mm.
right?
Yeah.
And when I first started communicating with universal beings, it was the same thing. Like the second day, I had this being, and he was like 11 feet tall, trying to get inside me. And I was like trying to lay it, like I was laying down in the old school, thought that's how you had to communicate, right? It was really funny. And like it was so dramatic. It was crazy. Like eye pillow and blanket and like, oh, and I had someone hold my hand, because I was terrified that I wouldn't be able to come back out. So I was like,
Yeah.
if I squeeze your hand, pull me out, because like I don't
Yeah.
know if I can come back. But because that's how strongly I knew that I could communicate and go into the universe. And
Yeah.
it's funny, because our fears, even though we didn't understand them, they're
Yeah.
warranted, but they're on a bigger picture we don't understand, right? So when you go back
Yeah.
now and you're going to start to see more of yours, and you're going to be like, oh yeah, okay, I see, that was warranted because I have that ability, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wait,
But
so I don't know if tell me if this I'm going outside the scope here, but how do you even do stuff like that, like communicate with universal beings? And
well,
is that like a thing specific to you, or like?
I was born doing it, and it's my mission to come here to restore human potential. And so I work with the beings who created humanity, who created existence, because my whole thing is, and there's a reason I have this thing, right? Is
Mm,
my perspective is, if you're going to get information, you might as well write to the source. Otherwise it's just a waste of time, which is what we were just
yeah.
talking about, like perspectives. Like I don't
Yeah.
want someone's
Yeah.
perspective. So
Yeah.
if I want to know about healing one aspect of humanity, I'm going to go to the being, the universal being who created that aspect of humanity in the first place,
Right.
because
Okay.
I want to know how it was originally created, what was the original intention, how to, like all of the things. Like I don't.
Mm,
And so we all have the capacity to communicate with souls. We all have the capacity to access universal awareness and communicate with these beings right away. But the thing is, you have to overcome all the beliefs that are blocking you.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And
Okay.
so that's really what my work does. Like my first book, Believe, is the foundation for human creation and the 9 fundamental energies that every single one of us have within us. I'm actually, I published it in 2013, and for since then, 11 years, everyone's been asking me to do a course on these 9 energies, and I'm launching it in a couple of weeks finally,
Oh,
so
amazing.
that, yeah, so that people can get to know themselves better. They can know
Mm,
why you were created. Like, the
mm,
most common question I get is, who am I? Why
yeah.
do I exist? Right? Like,
Yeah.
why am I here? Like, a lot of people will put it into the form of what's my purpose? And then I
Mm,
started to
mm.
realize that they were looking for a job description. They literally wanted their soul to say, here's your job description, go out and do it.
Right, right, right. That's what that question is, right? What's my purpose? It's like,
Yes.
well, how do I fit into the career space?
100%. Give me the job description and I will go do it, because that's how we've been trained, when really it's a
Yeah.
spiritual awakening and it's the whole journey that reveals itself,
Mm,
right? And it's not dramatic
mm,
saying that, it's just so simple. I mean, right?
mm,
Every step of the way.
mm,
And then I loved how every step that you shared from both perspectives of what was happening then
mm.
and what you see about it now. And
Yeah.
that's it's so important.
Yeah.
That's the awakening journey. That's it right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
then
Exactly.
and now, you're and how you see it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And it's so important because it's like, yeah, I can talk about how it was then, but that's just like that was such a small view, right? It's like,
Yes.
but it can be helpful to talk about it for people on that part of their path. But it's like
It's
you
so
have to
important.
see, yeah, but you have to see that's not actually how it is, you know, like on a
Yeah.
bigger level, it's
And
like,
yet, and it's just like you had that moment where, that guy, when I think it was Sam Harris, when you said he was saying sometimes it's sometimes it shows up in
mm,
mysterious illness, and it was your
mm,
moment, right? So
yeah,
this is going to be that moment for so many people as they're listening to
yeah,
your story, whether it's
yeah,
on this recording, whether it's on so many of the other things you're doing, right? You're doing the
mm,
same thing. You're propelling people into their destiny. And
mm, mm,
when you're, like that's the whole point of existence, is we're here to participate in evolution. And
yeah,
we haven't been for 50,000 years. That's a long time, because we've
yeah,
resorted to thinking ancient humans were archaic, and
yeah.
the current evolution is, leading edge. It's really funny when, you know, a new iPhone gets, promoted, and it's like it's revolutionary technology, and it's like, nope, it's just another phone that does a couple more things. Woohoo! Right? Like,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
revolutionary. And yet there were humans who were literally creating pyramids just through vibration of energy. We were flying
Mm,
because we knew how to shift energy without
mm,
any aid. And
mm.
they're saying, well, this technology is revolutionary.
Yeah, yeah,
Really? Really?
yeah, yeah. It's like it's all staying in the same thing. Like, okay,
Repeating.
there's
It's
new
a repeating
things.
cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But it's like not looking outside, like, wait, can we do things without all the steps that we believe are necessary? Like you said, going
Yes.
back to like an energetic level of, yeah, can we get, yeah, do this from a completely different space? Like,
And I
yeah.
think that's why the study of ancient origins is so popular right now. So popular,
Mm,
because
mm,
people are going, huh, what really was going on? And, there's
yeah,
amazing, like Graham Hancock, and there's others that are just like, they're on this leading edge of finding way more about civilization. And of course, they're being slammed for it, right? they're
yeah,
being
yeah,
they're being
yeah,
judged all over the place, because God forbid should someone find something outside the realm of science,
yeah. Yeah. And
You
you
know,
you will immediately, as soon as yeah, you step into that kind of space. It's just
the story of my
yeah.
life, right? Yes, right? It's the as soon
Yeah.
as you step outside, and you saw it the moment you started doing more research, and you're like,
Mm,
whoa, get sucked into this black hole. And
mm,
it's cool though, because there's truth down there too, right? But
yeah.
it's being able to decipher the truth from the fear and the hurt and the anger and
Yes,
the resistance.
exactly.
And yeah, I love.
Exactly. And like, yeah, for me, what was so important was coming into that like deeper self-trust of like, okay, because like you said, there is truth in that, like in dealing with the most intense pushback and like hate that I've gotten sometimes, there was liberation in that because it was like it allowed me to actually speak more freely because it was like, okay, cool. These people, this is how they feel about what I'm saying, yet deep down I know that this is true for what I need to say. And now I know that that can happen, that you can receive that kind of pushback and you can still stand in your truth. And it's like, yeah, it's so important to, yeah,
My
experience
greatest
that. Yeah.
challenges have been my greatest freedoms and
Yeah.
my
Always.
biggest
Yeah.
wins. 100%. It's funny, when I was writing Believe, and they said they shared the 9 fundamental energies in every human, and then they shared that when the creator decided that humanity was going to be resurrected, he had to create an energy that would facilitate resurrection, and he
Right.
created trust.
Mm,
And I love that you
mm,
just use trust. And
mm.
so I'm super excited I'm so excited to share that wisdom with the, like, anyways, it's just been sitting there. It's been inside of me, since 2011. And now I'm like, okay, let's just bring it out. I don't need to hide
Mm,
it anymore. So yeah,
mm.
uh, uh, you know,
Yeah.
I was told very young, a couple times, that if the governments knew what I could do, that they would want to own me. So it made
Right.
me stay really focused on the personal development side. And I stayed
Right.
far away from universal truth.
Right.
And now we're at a place where it's time. It's time
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
share. We
Yeah.
have to.
Exactly.
It's people
Yeah.
like you, it's people like me that we're questioning truth every single day.
Mm,
And it's opening up the opportunity
mm.
for the truth to come. Yeah, if we're
Yeah.
asking
Yeah.
those questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So, do
Yeah.
you have any other questions for me? I know we've been talking
Mm.
almost 3 hours. This is awesome.
It's, does not feel like it.
No,
Honestly, I
it really doesn't. We're gonna have to do one of these again. Oh my gosh.
I agree. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's a good question. There's so many different things I feel like I could touch on, but um,
What do you want to
yeah.
most know right now for where you are in your life? How's that?
Mm, that's good. Okay. What about energy? This was something that came up. Like, dealing with other people's energy. This is something that I feel like I'm still working on. Is kind of the way you said it, where you can feel into somebody's energy without like, you it doesn't get affected by you. Whereas I still feel like when I work with somebody one on one with their healing, I come out of it and I'm carrying their energy. I don't know if that's true, but that's what it
Ooh.
feels like. Like,
You know what I would love to do, and I know I would um, love to do a whole podcast on that topic, because
mm,
and the reason is then I can actually walk you through the process of feeling it yourself,
mm,
and understanding how to communicate and connect with others in order to facilitate healing from a universal and soul perspective. Would that be of
right.
interest to you?
Yeah, I'll do as many podcasts as you want.
I love that.
Honestly,
Because,
sign me up.
well, because it's like I can't give you a 5-minute answer, because
Mm,
your question is just the long and short answer is there's 2 different ways of looking at healing. And if we're
mm,
looking at healing from a human perspective, we're coming from the hurt, the pain, the trauma, and the suffering. And we want to help that. So we
mm.
want to carry the burden with them.
Right, right.
And so energetically, we're like, you shouldn't be carrying that, even though we're not saying, oh, I'm going to take that on. We're saying, I'm going to help you, but
Yeah.
energetically, I'm going to carry it with you. Right. It's like,
Right.
makes sense. You
Yeah.
see what I'm
That
saying?
clicks. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I would love to do is create an opportunity where you can expand your awareness so that you can hold space for other humans to experience their own personal paradigm and creation of self-healing,
Mm.
which is super powerful, right? So how even
Yeah.
today, like when you were talking and then I can share truth back with you, you're
Yeah.
healing. You're healing
Yeah.
because you're hearing it, but you're feeling the energy as well. So, and
Yeah.
I'm not like smashing it into you, I'm holding it,
Yeah.
and it's funny because as we were talking, sometimes you would like at first with anyone, you're meeting someone new, you tentatively dip your toe in and you're like, oh, that feels pretty good. The water's
Yeah.
warm. It's nice.
Yeah.
And then now you're like bathing. You're like sitting in the water, you're up to your shoulders, you're in it, and you're like, this is super cool. Like it's comfortable here. I can hang out here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would love to create an opportunity where I can show you how to offer that to others. Would you be interested?
Mm. I would be, yeah, for sure.
Okay, because I
Yeah.
think that there's a lot of my listeners who also
Yeah.
would love. So why don't we do that for our next our next visit?
Amazing.
Forget having
Yeah.
other guests. It's just gonna be Kyle and Michelle for the next 3 months. We have so
I'm
much to
down.
talk about.
I can do this every day.
Oh my goodness, I love it. Okay, I am
Yeah.
I am I can't even put into words how grateful I am that you showed up, that you said
Mm.
yes, and that you trusted me with your
Yeah.
journey. I know that
Yeah.
you're getting more comfortable sharing your story with the world,
Yeah.
but the fact that you feel the words that I'm saying and the energy that I'm offering, and you allowed yourself to open two different perspectives and
Mm.
grow right in front of our eyes. You know,
Mm. Mm.
it's beautiful and it's such a gift
Yeah.
because you're helping people see that it doesn't have to be scary. Awakening and
Yeah.
enlightenment and the
Yeah.
dark night of the soul, those things don't have to be scary. You know,
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
just been taught that it's hard and it's so, but there are humans who, like you, who are making it fun again. And I
Mm.
say
Mm.
again
Mm.
because this is how original origins of humanity existed. This is what we
Mm.
did. We were
Yeah.
constantly, the only time we communicated, we didn't waste communication on non-important things. We communicated when it what to come together when something mattered. And
Mm.
there's a level of integrity there, right? So that you're not wasting
Yeah.
someone else's energy, they're not wasting yours. It's a you
Yeah.
exchange, and that's what I mean, like the conversations are deeper now, right? Like you can feel that
Mm.
around you, right?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I love what you're offering, yourself and
Yeah.
and your friends and your community, but what you're also offering humanity, because when
Yeah.
you offer humanity that glimpse of you and that more of that magic every day, we all get better as a result.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. That's beautiful. I really appreciate like that you or whoever it was that invited me here. It's been amazing,
It's
like
wonderful.
to talk with you. I just feel so lucky,
Thank you.
honestly.
I feel the same way. This has been just wonderful. Oh my goodness. I'm so grateful that we connected and we were able to do them. And
Yeah.
now we've got two awesome episodes and we've got more coming down the line. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Absolutely.
I will
Yeah.
have Susan reach out or actually I'm going to reach out to you directly and set up
Okay. Awesome.
another time for
Okay.
another
Cool.
podcast recording in the next couple of weeks, and we'll
Yeah.
we'll do that one because I think that's super important. Holding space for other humans is especially right now where we are in evolution and learning about communication, right? Who we be and how we be
Mm,
with others. Holding space is all part of
yeah,
that communication. That's what it is.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
wonderful.
Absolutely. I think that'll be amazing. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask: are we still going to do the
Oh, yeah, yeah,
energetic?
yeah.
Do we?
Yes, I am. And I have been all the way along. So it's
That's what I was
interesting
going to
because,
ask. I was like, was it actually already happening?
yeah, it
Yeah.
already is. And it's now in the front, like in the Adam's apple. And also what's really interesting is there's pressure in the roof of your mouth. And
Okay.
at the back, it's almost like a cleft. Like there's something that sticks out a little bit, but it's not in the throat, it's at the back of the mouth. And why this is significant, and I do feel like it's going to sound weird, but it's a
Yeah.
result of COVID. And yet,
Right.
and yet, it's actually a result of the inner child. This is going to sound really weird the way they're saying this, but it's like the inner child being released, and you were like, nope, not yet. Nope, not yet. Can't come out yet. And so you've sort
Mm,
of trapped him in there. And by
okay.
him, it's actually your higher self. And that's, there's a
Right.
lot of misinterpretation about the inner child and all of those
Right.
things.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's really yourself, your soul. And it's like your soul just needs to be released. So, and what I mean by that is released in the sense of given the freedom to play and explore as you were always meant to. Would you like to experience that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that he's like,
don't,
yeah.
don't ask me twice.
All right. Let me go ahead. And I'm just, yeah. So they're working at the bottom of your lungs. I might have to break this one into 2 episodes too. It's so long. It's so funny. Yeah, it's good. And so it's along the back of your shoulders. Okay, so just breathe and relax, but take nice deep breaths in. And then as you're exhaling, I want you to just feel if you can expand your space a little bit more, like energetically inside of you. That's it.
Yeah.
Good. Yes. And then in the jaw, in the cells, I want you to do the same. Soften. It's like what we're doing is we're giving every single one of the cells a new vibration. So we're upgrading the vibration so it's more in alignment with truth. Okay.
Okay.
Less. So we're removing needing to prove is really what we're.
Yeah. Okay.
And honestly, I would say that's 90% of humanity. That's our greatest challenge. Still need to prove, still need
Mm,
to prove, still need to prove, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So that's that. It's like an overhang, right? It's like, oh, and it's
Mm,
really heavy, and it often will cause your jaw to stay closed. Like it's nope, don't talk, don't say anything. Um,
right.
yeah, energetically. So I'm just, I'm taking that. Oh gosh, now they're, so I'm doing all of these things at the same time because they just keep, you're so open. It's lovely. But they're also showing me. So we're working on the back of the skull now, right at the middle. So not the low, right at the
Mm,
back. And okay, so this is your, this is really interesting. This is your direct connection to source. And it's a little bit unique because most people will assume it's the top of the head, but yours is different because of the way information goes in for you. Um, the way they're showing me is it comes because of who your soul is, it comes through a really unique source that most people are not familiar with. So it's like, it's really cool. Gosh. So boy, this is more information that maybe you asked for, but you're open. So it's coming.
I'm
So
open
I
for it.
am not going to filter it. So
Don't please.
it's not my job to filter, right? That whole purity. Okay. So, um, your, your soul is not from this universe. You came here to facilitate this transformation, and your understanding of truth is like the universe that you came from is solely based in truth. So
Right.
it was an easy transition when, you were like, yep, sign me up, I'm in, right? And you had a few
Yeah.
thousand lives to practice and what have you for this particular role, because we knew coming in this wasn't going to be easy. But that's why truth is so important to you, but it's also why you won't rest until you find it. So
Mm,
you have an inner navigation system that knows truth from non-truth, which we could also call bullshit,
mm.
right away. It's like an instant BS detector. And,
Yeah.
the tricky part is that's why growing up was such a challenge, because people would tell you things and you're like, but that's on my BS detector, but you're telling me it's true and you're in a position of authority. So I should be believing you. So now I'm all messed up because I don't know what I'm supposed to believe. Right.
Right, right.
So ultimately, we're just gonna, yeah, I need to, wow, it's gonna sound crazy, but I just keep feeling so much dragon energy, like hot fire dragon. Like, um, it's like you have the ability to breathe life back into people when they think that they're at the end, like they just can't do anything
Mm,
anymore. And
mm,
that's really important because, but what we're going to do in that next podcast is going to be vital, because
mm.
you can't get lost in their pain and suffering.
Right, right.
Otherwise
Yeah,
you won't survive.
right. Yeah.
Right. It's why mental health workers, they're and youth workers and all of these people, like they can't do that career for a long time
Mm,
because they don't understand how to separate themselves from the story. Right. It's the same
right.
with
Yeah.
like, and it's also why, you know, first responders like police and, um, I work a lot with first responders, right? Ambulance and police, and because they're seeing a lot of the icky, crappy stuff. And
Mm,
it's interesting when you were talking about recovery, anyways, you have this ability to bring people back from the brink, but
yeah.
you're going to find your own unique way, and it is not going to be what anybody else is doing,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
It's also not going to look typical.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't yet know if it's because they come to you or you go to them. That's to be determined as you learn how to hold space for others. Like that's what you're really learning. So really pay attention to that dynamic of what it feels like to be in the space with other people and how it affects you and how you're affecting them
Mm,
on the energy side over the next couple of weeks until we have our next call, because then you're going to, um, you'll have so much more awareness and you'll be like,
right.
okay, yeah, now I know what we were talking about. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
really cool. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh, it's 10 o'clock at night for you. Okay, there. That's
I don't
awesome.
care.
Yes, but it's good. And your teeth may be a little bit sore over the next few days, like tender, almost feeling like, um, like the tenderness when you kind of get a cavity and it's like,
Right. Yeah.
it's like they're showing me there's going to be a feeling of open wounds,
Okay.
but it's an illusion. Like it's like, oh, what's that
Mm,
feeling? And then you're like, well, you look down and you're like, no, it's not there. It must be crazy. But
mm.
energetically, we've cut a lot of stuff off.
Okay.
That
Amazing.
yeah, and the back of the neck is coming down. They're showing me it's going to take about 48 hours. And the other thing is, in removing all of these things, all of them were filled with fear. Um,
Right.
and fear is stinky, just so you know. So when you're going pee, it's going to be brown. It's going to be stinky over the next few days. There's nothing physically wrong. Okay. I
Yeah.
wanted to just, because there's nothing physically wrong with you, you're going to have a little celebration and go, yep, more fear's leaving. Good riddance. That's it. Right.
Okay.
Celebrate it. Don't
Okay.
go, okay, what's wrong? Is there something off? Is my liver? No, you
Yeah.
are
Yeah. Yeah.
releasing fear at a really fast rate. Um, and drinking water. And if you find that you're getting muscle soreness, like muscle cramps, have a bath.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
have a
cool. I
bath.
love a bath. So
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Oh my gosh. Kyle, it's been wonderful. 3 full hours of awesomeness, which is going to be broken down into at least 2 episodes, maybe more. And we're going to have you back, which I'm super excited about. Thank you again. And
yeah, amazing.
yeah, think about all your big questions because we're gonna have some fun. I have a feeling, you and I.
I'm so excited to see where this goes.
Me too.
Amazing. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Michelle. I've loved every second of this. It's been amazing.
Thank you. Have a great one, Kyle. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this conversation, learned something, or received any benefit that you believe will improve your life, subscribe to our channel so I can serve you better by attracting unique guests and starting even bigger conversations. If you know you're meant to change the world, head on over to michellevickers.com, where innovators and thought leaders go for guidance, wisdom, inside information, and support they can trust. Until next time, stay curious.